Hi, it's Ryder Keeping It Real, and we are reading through the Bible using the Good News Bible. We are finishing up Second Maccabees. We're on chapter 15, the last chapter. This has been a very tough book to read. It's a lot of battles, a lot of wars. Um, so I'm kind of happy to be finishing it. Here we go. Nicanor. Nicanor learned that Judas and his men were in the region of Samaria, and so he decided to attack them on a Sabbath, when he could do so without any danger to himself. The Jews who were forced to accompany his army begged him not to do such a cruel and savage thing, but to respect the day that the all-seeing God had honored and made the most holy of all days. Then Nicanor, the lowest creature on earth, asked if there was some sovereign ruler in heaven who had commanded them to honor the Sabbath. And the Jews replied, Yes, the living Lord, who rules in heaven, commanded us to honor the Sabbath. But Nicanor answered, I'm the ruler on earth, and I order you to take up your weapons and to do what the king commands. However, he did not succeed in carrying out his cruel plan. Judas prepares his troops for battle. In his arrogance, Nicanor had boasted that he would set up a monument in honor of his victory over Judas. But Judas was fully confident that the Lord would help him, so he urged his men not to be afraid of the enemy. He encouraged them to remember how the Almighty had helped them in times past and to rest assured that he would give them victory this time also. He renewed their love by reading to them from the law and the prophets, and by reminding them of battles they had already won. When his men were ready for battle, he gave them their orders, and at the same time pointed out how the Gentiles could not be trusted because they never kept their treaties. He armed all his men not by encouraging them to trust in shields and spears, but by inspiring them with courageous words. He also lifted their morale by telling them about his dream, a kind of vision that they could trust. He told them that he'd seen a vision of Onias, the former high priest, that great and wonderful man and humble and gentle disposition, who was an outstanding orator and who had been taught from childhood how to live a victorious life. With outstretched arms, Onias was praying for the entire Israelite nation. Judas then saw an impressive, white-haired man of great dignity and authority. Onias said, This is God's prophet Jeremiah, who loves his fellow Jews and offers many prayers for us and for Jerusalem, the holy city. Then Jeremiah stretched out his right hand and gave Judas a gold sword, saying as he did so, This holy sword is a gift from God. Take it and destroy your enemies. The eloquent words that Judas spoke encouraged everyone to be brave and inspired boys to fight like men. Their city, their religion, and their temple were in danger. So the Jews made up their minds not to waste any time, but to make a daring attack against the enemy and bravely decide their fate in hand-to-hand combat. They were not so concerned about their own families and relatives as they were about their sacred temple. And the people who had to stay in Jerusalem were deeply concerned about how a battle on open ground would turn out. Everyone was waiting to see who would win the battle. The enemy troops were already moving forward, and their cavalry was on each side of them, and their elephants placed in strategic positions. Judas Maccabeus looked at the huge enemy force, the variety of their weapons, their fierce elephants. Then he raised his hands towards heaven and prayed to the Most High, who works miracles, because he knew that the Lord gives victory to those who deserve it, not to those who have a strong army. Judas said, Most High, when Hezekiah was king of Judah, you sent your angels who killed 185,000 of King Sennacherib's men. Now once again, Most High of heaven, send your good angel to make our enemies shake and tremble with fear. With your great power, destroy these people who have slaughtered you and have come out to attack your chosen people. So Judas ended his prayer. Nicanor and his army moved forward to the sound of trumpets and battle songs. But Judas and his men went into battle calling on the Most High for help. So, by fighting with their hands and praying to God in their hearts, the Jews killed more than 35,000 of the enemy. Grateful they were for the help that they had received from God. When the battle was over and they were going home, just 1 second, my granddaughter texted me. Sweetie. Okay, sorry about that. Was I? When the battle was over and they were going home celebrating their victory, they noticed Nicanor in full armor lying head on the battlefield, lying dead on the battlefield. Then, with loud shouts, they praised the Lord in their native language. Judas Maccabeus, who had always fought with all his body and soul for his fellow Jews, never losing the patriotism of his youth. Judas Maccabeus, who had always fought with all his body and soul for his fellow Jews, never losing the patriotism of his youth, ordered his men to cut off Nicanor's head and right arm and to take them to Jerusalem. Oh, here we go with the gruesomeness. When they arrived in the city, he called together all the people, stationed the priests before the altar, and sent for the men in the fort. He showed them the head of the evil Nicanor, and the arm which that wicked man had arrogantly stretched out against the sacred temple of the Almighty God. Then he cut out the tongue of that godless man, promising to feed it bit by bit to the birds, and to hang up his head opposite the temple, as evidence of what his foolishness did for him. This is interesting right here. I'm going to come back to this part right here. I'm going to come back to all of this. The head, what that means, the memories. Okay. Everyone there looked up to heaven and praised the Lord, who had revealed his power and had kept his temple from being defiled. Judas hung Nicanor's head from the wall of the fort as a clear proof to everyone of the Lord's help. By unanimous vote, it was decided that this day would never be forgotten but will be celebrated each year on the eve of Mordecai's Day. Okay, interesting. Which is the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar in Aramaic. Aramaic. Oh gosh, I can't even breathe again. Concluding words. That is how things turned out for Nicanor. The city of Jerusalem remained in possession of the Jewish people from that day on. So I will end my story here. If it is well written and to the point, I am pleased. If it is poorly written and uninteresting, I have still done my best. We know it is unhealthy to drink wine or water alone. Wait a minute. Whereas wine mixed with water makes a delightfully tasty drink. So also a good story skillfully written gives pleasure to those who read it. With this I conclude. Okay. So with this, let me say this first about the head, cutting off his head and putting his head as a symbol. I live near where his name? Um oh, where's the book that'll help me remember? Hold on. Here it is. Nat Turner. So I live in Virginia where Nat Turner's insurrection, they call it, happened. Enslaved Nat Turner. And something compelled me to go there to find the place, find the marker. And the thing that compelled me to do it was that they had just changed the name where they had put a blackhead on a post. It was called Blackhead Post Road. They had just changed that name like 2 years ago in Courtland, Virginia. I forgot what they changed it to, but I took a picture of it and, the dedication. And then I found a book. I started to read it. I haven't read it all about Nat Turner. And the fact that when you go to that place in Courtland, Virginia, it's a placard up about the name Blackhead Post Road. And the fact that what Nat Turner was doing, and remember, Nat Turner was the slave who could read, and he read the Bible. He believed that he was going to Jerusalem because Courtland used to be called Jerusalem. So when I read that, I thought about that. Blackhead Post Road in Courtland, Virginia. Look it up. So also what this reminds me of in the end, even though this was a difficult book to read to me, I had a hard time reading this book. Like I couldn't read, more than one chapter at a time. Sorry, I'm sharpening these pencils. Because it's gruesome. 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 But what it tells me, this part right here where he says, hey, here's my story of what happened, to Judas Maccabees and his family and what he did, is that he did something. He did something that ended up here where I'm reading it. And back to, we need to do something. And when I was reading the proverb of the day, that's what you do. That's what you do. Do something. And if you have a YouTube channel, you can have videos like mine. Maybe no one will look at them. Who cares? Because something is telling me it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that now that somebody won't look at them, somebody will look at them. And if nobody looks at them, the Most High is looking at them. The Most High knows that I'm sitting here on the Sabbath doing this versus shopping or whatever else I would normally be doing on the Sabbath, right? That I've made that decision to do that. Oh, okay. It's almost like maybe I can breathe now. Maybe, maybe, maybe whatever I read next won't be so heavy. This was heavy to me. A lot of killing, a lot of details about the killing. That was it. More of the details about the killing. Oh, the holy sword is a gift from God. It was gold. That's deep. I mean, we read this, but this is like deep. So I think about the Blackhead Post Road. That so people, maybe we haven't read these stories. We certainly need to be reading these stories, as you can tell, because, like I said, it's instructive. These things are going to happen again and again and again. It's not like it's one and done. It keeps repeating. The Blackhead Post Road kept repeating. It happened to Nat Turner. Cut off his head and put it on a post. And remind other slaves, you better act like you know, you better not rise up. And that did the trick. But still, what? Nat Turner is in the history book. He's in the history books. And when you read his story, it's amazing. It's an amazing story. Okay, so this concludes Second Maccabees. And it was an interesting read. And I encourage you to pull out your Bible, your Apocrypha, and read it for yourself. It was a journey. It was a journey. It was some nice pictures. I actually like the pictures. Color. I love the pictures that we were coloring. This was Second Maccabees. Stories were interesting. Read to that. Kind of. There we go. I mean, so just looking at the pictures helps me remember the story a little bit. And so with that, until next time, it's Ryder keeping it real.